Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Feels like I'm speaking all day today. Busy day, but here we are. I'm very happy that you're here. What's happening? Wow. Okay. It's Wednesday. Wow, it's just Wednesday. I just finished laughing. I'll show you the pictures later. Trump in London. This is unforgettable. So we're gonna have some fun today. A bit towards the middle of this broadcast because I'm gonna leave it a little bit, so we use it as a cheer up moment in between of all kinds of news. Hi, Michael. Hello. Hi, Peter. Welcome. Yes, I'm welcome here, I guess. Hi, Mike. Hello, all. Yes. Hello. Hello. Thank you so much for waiting. Thank you for being patient. What I did today, we recorded 2 hours and 2 minutes deep dive discussion with the Canadian podcast. And I posted links to it. I'm also going to include it in the newsletter tomorrow because it's going to premiere on Friday at 7 in the morning. So not to confuse you, I'm not including it tonight, but rather tomorrow. Also, some housekeeping. As I mentioned, tomorrow I'm at UN at 8 in the morning. So this goes through evening. So I'm not scheduling any live stream tomorrow in case something happens and I'm able to stream from there, which would be a wonderful thing. I don't estimate that to happen, but if in case, I will announce it on Blue Sky and Twitter Shitter. So just keep your eyes on that. Also, I'm gonna send an email, a separate email. Let me know tonight or tomorrow with how you can download and have access to our app, which is free and safe. Only I would have then access to see your email address. That's all. And you don't have to put any data there, but then I'll keep you up to date tomorrow with the app while I'm there. So in order to be safe, but also keep you informed. All right. So here we are. Today is a busy day nationally, not so much, but globally at least. Also, I posted on Blue Sky that late last night, I got something from Kremlin poll as how they plan to essentially blow up Japan, which is meant for uneducated or not much educated people and easily impressed. So we're gonna dive into that today. So I'll explain it, and then we'll just progress from there. Okay. All right. Boom, ba-doom, ba-doom. Not the horse salute. Yeah, the horse I have. The horse I have. But other pictures, Peter, based on your comment, you haven't seen it. Get your tissues because they're gonna cry. I just cried tears, but anyway, let's begin with everything. So let's focus on U.S. economy. So we did get reports as promised. It was released today, the consumer report. And so how are we doing? It's very predictable. It reminds me on this picture that I saw from US Open when the guy was eating chicken wings with $100 caviar, underpriced for caviar, but it's chicken wings with caviar. Not really something that goes along, but they spent $100 on that, and it was like a snack. And for me, this and next to that, the elimination of food stamps for people who rely on that is what America is today. And that is vividly depicted in today's data on consumer behavior. So, while most Americans are still keeping close tabs on their budgets, the wealthiest are increasingly driving consumption. In quarter two, the top 10% of earners accounted for 49.2% of all consumer spending. Let's repeat it. 10% of the wealthy, top 10, accounted for almost 50% of entire spending of the United States. So, do you understand where the money is? So, this went up from 48.5% in quarter one. This is based on Federal Reserve data analyzed by Moody's economist Mark Zandi. Now, spending from households earning less than 175K has stayed flat since the pandemic, while top 10% continue to grow their share, fueled by record stock prices and soaring home values. At the same time, conflicting economy signals Commerce Department data showed retail sales up 0.6% last month, more than double forecast. Online shopping surged 2%, restaurants and bars 0.7%, department and furniture stores fell. Yet car loan and credit card delinquencies are climbing, hiring is slowing, and trust in capitalism is eroding. Economists warn that with the spending balancing on one leg, a pullback by the top 10% could tip the US into recession. And it's very interesting how, yes, Mike, yes, the melanoma, the melumpia. Yeah. I'm just reacting to the comment about melumpia picture. You will understand. Stick with me, you're going to see it. So, we are now relying on the 10 top percent of the richest people to keep our economy afloat by spending. That's where we are, right? And because, yeah, we can phrase it the way you want, that now the richest people consuming is consumerism is now taking a bigger share. Yeah, because people can't afford anything but groceries and rent. That's why they're still buying. So of course, whatever they do is gaining percentage of the pie. But I mean, let's just be realistic. Now, as to TikTok deal, yeah, there's a lot of yada yada yada. But here's what's really on the table. So details are emerging from China, a bit from US, but mainly from China, because they start confirming the papers that are on the table. So the US business would be controlled by Oracle, plus investors Silver Lake and Andreessen Horowitz. The same folks who invested in X, the same people with entry to the White House, same people who, by the way, invested also in Substack. US users would migrate to a new app that is already being tested. I'm wondering if that something with lemon. It was something with lemons. Have you seen it? I don't use TikTok that much, but there's something with lemons. The lemonade. Yes, was lemon in the eight, and TikTok has been the same company has been pushing it forward so much. I wonder if that's the new TikTok. The new board would be mostly American, with one seat appointed by US government, probably Trump for life. Trump extended the divestment deadline by ByteDance to December 16th, the fourth now extension, and I reported on that yesterday. Now, what is new is that based on China's analysts, the CCP gets to continue programming the app with no oversight, while Trump allies get to capture the financial upside. So, yeah, we're still selling the data, but Trump gets to collect the money and his friends. That's the TikTok deal. Now, meanwhile, the cat is away, the mice is not playing, but they're taking trees out. Trump is in London, obviously, and meanwhile, the construction. As you see here, the crews began preparing the White House grounds for ballroom construction. And, you know, those trees, as I posted, those are historic trees planted by first families. I mean, they have been cleared for demolition and to be taken out. And this picture is from yesterday, so be safe to estimate this is out now. People's House. Now, President of Ukraine Zelensky gave an interview to Sky News where he's actually addressed Russians. And yes, the interview is from yesterday. I partially reported on it, but I want to feature this quote because he captures, what we Ukrainians truly feel and pretty well. So, quote, he says, I have nothing to say to Russians because they have no ears. They don't want to listen. But years from now, they will ask for forgiveness. Their children and grandchildren will ask for forgiveness. They will be forced to admit that Putin destroyed their history and to apologize. End quote. And this is true, and we have seen it so many times in history. I mean, everywhere. Any genocide is followed by people apologizing for decades. And I mean, the trust is broken. There's whole generations of Ukrainians, and yes, I'm referring to children, the stolen children, the tortured children, the raped children, who will never see even humanity in the eyes of Russia. They will just fear it like a plague, like just avoid it. They're so horrible when you see videos of children who are like 7, 8 years old, but they look so old, not just beyond their years, but they just look aged. They have wrinkles. Like, just you go through so much torture, so much stress and anxiety that, in the way they talk about it, like, oh, Russia bombed and they killed civilians. But yes, this was, it was estimated, and this was like, and it's 7, 8 year olds who's supposed to be playing with toys, enjoy their time outside in September, and be happy that they return to school. Meanwhile, their school is underground in the bunkers and metro stations. Now, also, meanwhile, Ukrainians over age of 60 are now eligible to join armed forces. Not demanded yet, but invited to. Now, what Russia says. Russia's foreign minister, horseface Sergei Lavrov, claimed that Russian army never strikes civilian targets. Here's a video so you can believe it, that he actually did say it. It has captions.
Никогда российская армия не работает ни гражданским и мирному населению. На каждое обвинение мы задавали вопрос, где доказательства, где факты. И в том, что касается фейков, обвиняющих российскую армию в преступлениях, которые затем оказывались совершены украинским режимом, есть зачисленные.
I don't know why it was cutting off, but essentially, they're not targeting civilians. They never strike civilian targets, just every day, killing now dozens of Ukrainians on a daily basis. But Horseface says no. So, he's the bad horse today. Today, we also had a good British horse. I'm going to show you in a second. Now, Minister of Foreign Affairs, their spokesperson, Maria Zakharova, who drinks a lot, she threatened retaliation if the EU tightens visa rules for Russians. Polish now president, pro-right, MAGA, right, very aligned. I mean, MAGA advocated for him to be elected. Karol Nawrocki called for nuclear sharing, saying Poland should build its own civil and military nuclear capabilities with French support. Is it good timing, really, now, building nuclear thing? Yeah. Just taking all effort from Ukraine. Just take it all. Just let's focus on me. A week ago, he was saying that, actually, what week ago? 2-3 days ago, he was heavily relying on Washington supporting him. He was just posing with Trump and getting pictures as a gift and was so happy that Washington, D.C. is protecting you. And now you suddenly want nukes. What happened? What happened? So, the European Council approved ending temporary protection status for Ukrainian. It's over. For Ukrainian refugees. They're shifting to residence permits, work-study visas, and voluntary return programs. Now, it all sounds very nice. It's the same, actually, sound that this government in the United States produced when they also stopped renewing the so-called TPS, Temporary Protected Status for Ukrainians, also referred to as U4U program, United for Ukraine. Same stories for European Union. Yes, Right. Residence permits are open. Residence permits are open to everybody. Well, who is either marries or has children there, or lived in the country, or you should have a merit, like you should have a reason for. Obviously, it's open because Ukrainians are not banned, but you can't transfer from temporary status to residence permits. Now, work study visas, absolutely. But do you think every Ukrainian that was fleeing to Germany, France, Poland, they're able to pay for students and visas, or they're of that age to even be part of that program? And then comes this voluntary return program. That's where they say we're going to benefit Ukraine by dispatching those people back to Ukraine because they have to rebuild the economy now and the goddamn war. And trust me, so many Ukrainians can't wait to go back. That's what's weird about Ukrainians. They really are eager to go back and rebuild the economy. Close the skies, at least, end the war, so people are not fearing to be blown out of this world as soon as they cross the border. So EU officials, stress that support for Ukraine continues, but the bloc must prepare for reconstruction. Now, Britain is resisting US calls for secondary sanctions on India over its ties to Russia. Prime Minister Starmer will discuss sanctions tomorrow with Trump in London. Now, in Slovakia, they have protests. Tens of thousands protested in 16 Slovak cities against Prime Minister Robert Fico's pro-Russian policies and austerity measures. Fico is the only leader who attended the Beijing parade alongside Putin, and he has drawn fierce criticism for his alignment with Moscow. Well, good. Now, that's where we come close to the Kremlin press poll thing I got yesterday. So what happened yesterday? U.S. Or a few days leading up to that, U.S. deployed Typhoon missiles in Japan. It's not typhoon; it has one O. So I guesstimate it's red typhoon. Let me know. The US has for the first time deployed this mid-range hypersonic missile system to Japan as part of Resolute Dragon 2025 joint military exercises. This Typhoon can launch Tomahawk-style cruise missiles and SM-6 interceptors up to 1,000 miles. Now, it's capable to strike both at land and sea. So the deployment significantly complicates Chinese and Russian military planning. As a result, late last night, Kremlin press pool pushes this idea. Then it's also being featured in Financial Times and all that. So let's dive through. Russia has been training officers for potential operations targeting Japan and South Korea, raising alarm that Moscow might seek to expand its military reach into East Asia. You dig it? Poland, Romania, Baltics, now we're getting to Japan and South Korea. I'll tell you what they're doing. Right? The exercises are set to include preparing forces to strike US allies and complicate Washington's defense posture in the Pacific. And this is the exact reason here. So let's call a thing. Trump scared, Putin scared Trump out of Europe, right? Don't get involved. There might be nuclear attacks, even when targeted. US forces will suffer, you will suffer. So just let Europeans buy military equipment from you, overcharge them, overprice them, but don't be involved, right? So US is sort of like departed, reminds me on the meme of Homer Simpson going back into the bushes. Departed from Eastern Bloc, right? NATO's Eastern Bloc. And then remember Pentagon was saying we're focusing on Indo-Pacific. And then suddenly they said, oh, we're focusing on homeland, right? We're just protecting us now. Indo-Pacific is not of an interest of China for US to be present there. President Biden built a coalition, the so-called IP4. Australia, Japan, New Zealand, South Korea. They all traveled to his birth city, right, in Delaware. and went to his school and his home and spent all this beautiful time there together. Remember? And then Trump came into power, starts tariffing allies, starts overcharging them, forces them to buy more military equipment. Why F-16s got a hold of almost 20 countries. He's forcing people to spend money and buy good um, behavior or buy good intentions, right? So they, are not really trusting this. Then Trump says, well, with Taiwan, are we going to really defend it? Are we not? We don't know. Remember, China was doing all types of exercises so far as between New Zealand and Australia. Like, huh? And US wasn't really doing anything, not even condemning it with a strongly worded letter, maybe in all caps. There was no tweet, there was nothing, right? And so those IP4 are not really trusting us any longer. And now, okay, we're putting these missile systems in Japan. Obviously, Japan would need to buy missiles from us to operate it. But okay, we are riding this together with Japan. Now, this pisses off Xi Jinping. And Xi Jinping's useful tool is Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin's useful tool is Donald Trump. And so this goes down this letter. And now Putin says, we're going to, Xi Jinping calls Putin, scare Trump out of Japan. I don't like that, right? Because when he will invade Taiwan, China openly set the deadline by 2027. We are currently September 17, 2025. So ain't that long. So for them, they need to scare US the heck out of Indo-Pacific. And so they produce these bogus reports. So on the surface, this sounds dramatic. I mean, they sent all these beautiful drawings. Do I have them? I don't. Yeah, I do. So scary, put everything. They called one thing Ukraine, something other. They call missiles different names. They put mashed up and like all this where they're gonna do, what they're gonna do, drawings, pictures, numbers. Woo, scary. Nah, but how feasible is it? Okay, let's just dive in. There are logistical roadblocks. Do you understand where is Japan and where is Ukraine? Do you understand that Russia is running out of people for the meat grinder in Ukraine? They spent 3 years losing over 1 million soldiers to capture about 3% of Ukraine. Now, to direct, physically get the missiles from Ukraine, from this part of the world, into all the way to face Japan, will take months, will take money, will take effort, and most importantly, will take people. So, Russia is struggling to sustain its war in Ukraine, where supply chains, fuel reserves, and ammunition and already stretched thin. Extending operations toward Japan or South Korea across enormous distances would require supply networks and naval or air assets that Moscow simply doesn't have right now. As to hardware and technology shortages, obviously they have been sanctioned. They need parts for drones, for missiles, for airplanes, and this causes delays. As to manpower and money, training and equipping fresh officers, right, fresh personnel for such far-flung missions is costly, and Russia's sanction-strapped economy is unlikely to sustain both the war in Europe and credible threats in East Asia. Now, much of this posturing looks more than like messaging than reality. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Russia may want to rattle nerves in Washington, Tokyo, and Seoul by suggesting it can open another front, but actual operational moves would almost certainly provoke direct confrontation with the US, a fight Moscow is ill-equipped to handle. Because if they provoke, and just to have this thought that maybe Trump can just go berserk and bump the the living life out of you, they will not risk it. All these dictators are dangling their nuclear everything. Oh, we're going to blow up the world. We're going to blow up the world. We're going to blow up the world. And meanwhile, they're discussing how they're going to live till 150 years old by harvesting organs of objects and subjects. So they're so not planning to blow themselves up which will be the result of any nuclear attack if one retaliates, right? Even to a targeted attack. So all of this is a lot of bluff. And this bluff is targeted to one person only, Donald Trump, who should become very intimidated, who should say, I don't want to face Xi Jinping because Xi Jinping will help Russia. This will be a big thing. This is just all of that has one, the audience of one. So, my personal opinion is Russia's talk of targeting Japan and South Korea reflects political theater more than practical power. Now, if China would have said, we're gonna use Russian land to strike Japan or whatever, that would be credible. But China and its economy is also not as stable since COVID for this type of operations. They might be marching really well, they might be having impressive parades, but also if they pull their forces into this direction, Taiwan is not going to happen by 2027. So, with its resources drained in Ukraine, the economy buckling, and its armed forces overstretched, Moscow lacks the means to credibly project force in the Pacific. What it does achieve is psychological, right? So forcing US allies to think twice, distracting Trump, and reminding the world that Putin still wants to be seen as global player, even if capacity is running on fumes. Okay? So this is what I got to say about it. Peter says Russia's East Asia just had a natural gas explosion and 7.4 earthquake, right? It's only deep water submarine base. Did Vlad lose yet another submarine base? You know what? They have been, there's some think tanks, and I'm not reporting on it because I have to verify it, and think tanks are usually like opinion based. But a lot of people from Ukrainian side are saying that Russia has been for decades really focusing on where the plates, do you call it? I have to translate from German for some reason. The plates are connecting so they can essentially detonate something in that part which would cause an earthquake. And that's what they think was the reason for earthquakes in Siberia, where they just try to see where they can cause more damage by just carefully planting bombs and whatnot. Could be tectonic, right? Yes, tectonic plates. Yes. So that is something that Ukrainians and folks in Europe think is a real thing. What Russia is doing, and that started back from Soviet Union. They were studying how it's all also developing through decades, and where they can exactly Peter target the connection of tectonic plates and how they can detonate that to cause extra tsunamis and earthquakes that cause tsunamis, right? So that is what at least was mentioned. China real estate is failure, cash negative. Exactly. And their economy was so dependent on the real estate, right? So for this reason, they're actually artificially boosting the economy. If you think about their financial reports, they're literally printing money to sustain. So they're also not doing that well. And they're not producing as much to Peter is earth science teacher. Thank you. Maybe you should come here and tell us what this all means. Message me so maybe you can appear and tell us what this would be. That's thank you. I hope I didn't say anything dumb, because that's certainly not my part of knowledge in any way. Now, I see the whole thing, to round up with Russia and Japan and South Korea. I see it as the squirrel for Trump to pull the forces out of Indo-Pacific and open, literally and figuratively, the waters for China to go into Taiwan. That is what I see this being. Nothing more than that. Hi, Stephanie Lynn. Stephanie Lynn says, what an utter waste of our tax. Right. These congressional members pushing Arthur Norton. Indeed. And I mean, let's get to some quick news. That's exactly what we're going to talk about. First of all, in Minnesota, they have some good news. We remember that due to a very unfortunate circumstances, a seat became available. So a Democrat Lee won that seat of now slain Democratic leader, restoring 67 to 67 tie in State House and preserving the bipartisan power sharing deal. So at least they will have to listen to Democrats in Minnesota. Also, Governor Walz is running for re-election. National Park Service reports that or shares that Trump administration ordered several sites to remove materials related to slavery and Native Americans. And this is why curating culture series, I'm going to talk about it, believe me, you, to every single person who wants to listen, maybe who doesn't want to listen at the UN. That's all I'm going to talk about all week. We got to invest into this. We are not humans. We are not cultural. We're not educated if we start reshaping, rewriting our history, reselling, and just getting rid of cultural treasures that, just stealing that knowledge from generations to come. It's horrible. This is disgusting. Removing materials related to slavery and Native Americans. What, they didn't happen? Stupid. Yes, Peter, thank you for mentioning that. Yes, we remember Melissa Hortman and her husband and the dog. Yeah. Okay, now, advocacy groups warn detainees in those concentration camps for migrants are not receiving proper mental health care, with repeated reports of suicide attempts. As to AI safety, OpenAI announced new safeguards for ChatGPT, including parental controls coming by month's end and age verification in some countries. And this is a slippery slope. I'm all for age verification, but you know how they're going to verify it? I'm going to tell you. Just keep getting emails. They're going to verify it by using AI that will monitor the behavior based on the content they're watching. So if you're a kid, I'm not advocating, I don't think any kid is watching, but anybody can open an account, start watching adult content, so AI would think you are an adult and would then verify you as an adult. Please tell me this is not dumb. And then, okay, you got to upload your ID. In some countries like UK, they're advocating to upload ID. Who's going to get a hold of your ID? Peter Thiel and company? Very nice. So Trump administration naturally will appeal to Supreme Court to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook after a lower court allowed her to stay on while suing the White House. Trump is suing New York Times for defamation. Paper called it as an attempt to stifle and discourage independent reporting. And here I really have a question. What are we calling independent reporting these days? Because when New York Times finishes every single article that is not always truthful, I mean, they're on the better side of history than Fox Entertainment Channel, but certainly some things are really out of the world. And they're finishing it with, please donate to independent reporting. Now, they have a building. Their headquarters are several blocks in Manhattan, right across Penn Station. So, like, really? You're independent? Then what I am? Like, because we talk about independent media will keep us afloat, but then New York Times is independent media. Is it really independent? What are we independent? Who are we independent from? Now, AOL, remember? Beep, 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 makes noises. Maybe you still have the email address, but Apollo Global Management is exploring a sale of AOL. Wall Street Journal reports. Now, Trump administration ordered Delta and Aeromexico to unwind their partnership over competition concerns. So essentially just asking Mexico to come in and cash in, I guess. And Delta did not donate to the inaugural fund, and Delta is pretty legit in that regard. Now, as to defense news, congressional Republicans proposed a funding bill to keep the government open until November 21st, but left out the White House's $3.9 billion request for Columbia-class submarines. As to drone sales, U.S. experts of drones will now be handled like fighter jet sales, part of a push to expand their role in global defense markets. Now, they're overpriced. Maybe you should buy Ukrainian ones. Peru F-16 deal. Peru received approval to buy 12 F-16 CD Block 70 jets, signaling a shift away from Russian combat aircraft. That would make Peru the fourth South American F-16 operator. As to Colorado Springs, remember they moved U.S. Space Force Command to Huntsville, Alabama. So Colorado is kindly asking to increase, their share of defense contracts because they were relying on that in terms of employment tax and all that kind of stuff. And we're coming to Trump in London. It's our halftime show. Oh, we're going to talk about NFL today too. Yeah, believe me, you. And not about girlfriends. I still have an AOL email. Sent all my annoying coupon mail there. Oh, nice. I still have Hotmail Hotmail. I forgot to log in, but somehow it still receives messages, like since I was like a student. Yeah, and it's ridiculous. Fits to anything. Okay, so Trump in London. First, he was greeted by Prince William and Princess Kate. Take a look. Heels on the grass. Bulldoze over it. Just reminds me on the Rose Garden. Then there was the reception at Windsor Castle. Some of you said he was late. I checked with the press pool. He wasn't late for a change. So it looked like that. Very fancy. White House put this live stream. You're supposed to text POTUS and you're going to get something. Probably deported. It looked like this. He was again saluting the anthem. Melania Trump had a hat on. Trump had a tie in the color of her hat. And then he was officially, he's like exploring, or how's it called officially? With the troops. Wait. Okay, so he had to sort of not explore the troops, but like check on them or whatever it's called. Let me read out so it sounds smarter. President Trump and Melania arrived in the UK on Tuesday for a rare second visit. Why is it rare? Because usually each president gets one state visit regardless how many terms they serve. So he got one with the late Queen Elizabeth II, but in 2019, but this time they sort of like bent and did that again. Trump had a carriage ride. Let me show you the carriage ride. Do I have it? Probably don't. Anyway, he has a carriage ride in the golden carriage, and then Melania and Camilla, queen consort, were also having a ride in their own carriage. Looked like Bridgerton. Very nice. Then he was he was walking in front of King Charles during a troop inspection. It looked this way. Now I posted it. Of course, MAGAville is all behind, like all onto me that I don't know the protocol. Protocol shows he's supposed to walk in front of the king, but he's stopping here. He's chatting with everybody. He was asking about the hats. And then here, as you see, King Charles, like gently, if he's kind of afraid for his life a little bit, tapping him like, let's go, come on. And then they went, and all together it might be a protocol, right? It might be okay, but that looks hella weird when the king is toppling right behind you. I understand that the critics and haters posted those pictures of different leaders walking in front of the king, like President Biden and President Macron. I do understand that this does exist. what I'm referring to, I mean, there are many rules that exist. Like, for instance, you shouldn't be saluting an anthem. Right? Melania here knows what to do. He doesn't. So to say that this guy really goes by protocol or what protocol is, it looked hella weird. It looked as weird as it was with Elizabeth II. But if you claim, and you're an expert, who there were some commenting that this is the protocol, I believe you. What I'm going to add is that looked hella weird. Now, they post for pictures here. Then they post for pictures here. Back, you see here, of course, with Prime Minister Starmer and his wife, now inside the castle. And then before they were invited for the state dinner, they were exploring some art. This is a real picture. On the right is Melania Trump. It looks like a lamp. Anyway, it's a real picture. It went all over the news. It was released by the palace. It was photographed by the pool. There are a couple of them. You can see her here. Yes, it's Melania on the right. Still there, still looking at something, exploring some. I mean, whoever dressed this, whoever made this ensemble here, very fitting for a funeral, and allowed her to hide or smile. I don't know. She's a spy. And I'm not a hater. I don't like discussing women and their fashion choices, but this looks hella weird. Like, what are we even doing? Obviously, it's going to end up on top of every single cover. Tidy Whitey is here. Yeah, you made it. Yay. Good. Thank you for being here. Multi Tom, hello, says Trump walked in front of the king, which is rude. Exactly. This is my take. Now, there come all those, couch potato experts who tell me that this is not. And maybe they're right. But what I'm saying is, it looks hella weird. So, did Trump have beef Peter Martini Mexico style? Who knows? Okay, let's continue. So then was the state dinner. Banquet, they call it. That's the table. That's what's on the table. We can zoom in and see what did they eat. I don't know. Let me read it, because I know you guys are interested in that part. So if I zoom in, it says panna cotta. Then there were wines. Everything is in French, by the way, so I will not butcher and try to read it, but it's literally called le menu. So I'm not sure what that dig is, but the prince and princess looked very beautiful, ready for state dinner. President and the first lady, well, without the hat this time. That's how they went by. Now, what I really, really want to point out is the speech by King Charles. And you know how he began the speech? Here's a quote. Today, as tyranny once again threatens Europe, we and our allies stand together in support of Ukraine to deter aggression. This is the opening of his statement. Now, that is something. Not as big of a statement as a very brave British horse did. So when they were bypassing Trump and, of course, the king and the queen and Melania, the horse took a dump. Take a look. That tail up. That's, yeah. And also Trump was touching royalty, which he's not supposed to. Take a look. Entering whatever the podium, touching him. Again, went viral. You're not supposed to touch the king, but what matters these days? Right? So that's to London. Now, as to protest, anti-Trump protests erupted with activists. Where have the picture here. Activists projecting giant images of Trump and Jeffrey Epstein onto Windsor Castle overnight. 4 people were arrested. Now, what they will discuss, obviously, it's reported that King Charles is planning to convince Trump to help Ukraine, hence the speeches. But it's really, I mean, remarkable. He begins with Ukraine. The whole idea is to convince Trump to behave. Will it work? My guesstimation is no. This will boost the ego. This will provoke more speeches and more photos and more of everything. Will it save Ukraine? I don't count on it. Maybe you are more optimistic here. I don't think that's going to do it. But you know what's interesting? Trump is there also to do some business. Not with the UK. Reportedly, based on the White House aides, that Trump asked the British, organizers, so to speak, to invite Rupert Murdoch, with whom he is in a giant lawsuit, and he wants $10 billion from Murdoch. Now, Trump got his request, right, to greenlit, so that Rupert Murdoch is there reportedly at this white tie event. And Trump allegedly, now per aides, told that he will push the old man into settlement and called it the easiest $10 billion he's ever made. So this is also occurring in London or Windsor Castle. Just wanted to mention. Now, as to Charlie Kirk's murder case, the accused shooter in the murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk appeared virtually in court. Tyler Robinson, who's 22, faces 7 counts, including aggravated murder and obstruction of justice. Prosecutors will seek death penalty. Court documents reveal Robinson confessed in text messages to a roommate shortly after the attack. There's a long list of messages. I don't know, those are real, those are not. They don't have timestamps. Also, I kind of question the way folks text these days, because it had like full paragraphs with punctuation and everything. But at least that's also a bit of a part that was released. That's where they say this is a confession. Now, as to Ben and Jerry's, if you love their ice cream, you probably will love it more. Jerry Greenfield, the co-founder of Ben and Jerry, the Jerry in Ben and Jerry, announced his resignation in protest of Unilever's ownership. Greenfield accused Unilever of silencing the brand's activism, saying, quote, "Standing up for justice, equity, and our shared humanity has never been more important. And yet Ben & Jerry's has been sidelined for fear of upsetting those in power." End quote. So he doesn't want to bend the knee. He criticized both Unilever and the Trump administration, citing attacks on civil rights, immigrant voting rights, women, and the LGBTQ community. And by the way, from all the websites, the administration has removed the T in LGBTQ. Quick global news. Poland versus China. Warsaw refused Beijing to their request to reopen its 25 billion euros per year trade corridor with Belarus, as you see here, blocking 90% of China-EU rail freight. Platforms like Timo and Shine face disruption as sea routes lag and air freight costs soar. So you see here the circle type of thing. If the connection between Belarus and Poland is closed, so nothing can go through, so that entire cycle is disrupted. Again, it costs China 25 billion euros per year. So push Putin to surrender and cease operations. Poland didn't just wake up and chose violence. Putin did. So why don't you ask the murderer to behave? Why do you constantly press the victims? Speaking of victims, Trump said the U.S. has now destroyed 3 suspected drug smuggling boats from Venezuela. We just keep slaughtering people. No details were given on the 3rd strike. As to Europe's deadly summer, scientists linked tens of thousands of excess deaths in Europe to extreme heat worsened by climate change. And as to Britain, the UK is expanding facial recognition and internet regulation faster than nearly any other Western democracy. Hence, the label surveillance state. Now, as to Gaza and Israel, so UN Human Rights Council inquiry released Tuesday concluded that Israel has committed 4 acts of genocide in Gaza since October 2023. Now, Israel rejects the report as distorted and false, while its military launched a ground incursion into Gaza City, literally rolling over 500,000 people. Prime Minister Netanyahu admitted the campaign could take several months, despite condemnation from European allies. Axios reported Washington privately supports the operation, obviously, Trump Gaza, but wants it finished quickly. Kill people, but do it quickly. Trump told reporters, quote, "I have to see. I don't know too much about it." EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen proposed sanctioning extremist Israeli ministers and violent settlers and suspending trade concessions. And some of you asked to explain it. They just called Netanyahu extremist Israeli minister. That's all. So if EU will, including Germany, will go this extra mile to do so, that'd be, a fair development. And by the way, when we had the deep dive with the Canadian wonderful podcast and live stream, by the way, watch it on Friday, 7 a.m. on their channel. I'll post the links. And we talked about Gaza, we talked about Ukraine, we talked about Alaska, we talked about the Arctic, we talked about everything. US, Mexico, the trades, the COSMA, everything. So when we talked about Gaza there, I said, look, we have to stick to facts, and I want to repeat it here. Yes, there was a Holocaust. Yes, Jewish population in big numbers suffered, was slaughtered. It was horrific, not just horrible, horrific. October 7th happened. It was unprovoked. It was horrific. Retaliation happened, which is okay, understood. But I don't want to listen to that thing, because I was diving there and explaining everything since I was at the UN with the Palestine, and what happened before Hamas and during Hamas and all that kind of stuff, and what I prognosed to happen later, which I think if Netanyahu rolls over Gaza, murderers usually become hungrier. And so I think it will expand into Iran, because that Khamenei regime is really pissing off Netanyahu for decades. I think it will go that way. Analysts and think tank, high regarded folks see this as a beginning of World War III because of the nuclear ability of Iran, which we don't know and probably underestimate. So I think that will start there. I don't think it ends in Gaza. That's my personal opinion. Wars are easy to start, difficult to finish. Every war finishes with some type of peace deal. There, I don't see it. So, and also Israel has almost unlimited military power. Military aid. Compare what Ukraine gets, buys, right? And allies buy from US, and what Israel gets. Just gets. So, with permission to use. Now, in other news, Mercosur and EFTA deals. So Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay signed a free trade agreement with Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland, covering 300 million people, pending ratification. So this is the western part, really working with Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay. So this is the way EU really wants to still stay partners with those nations. So they are not fully embracing China or falling into China's embrace. Now, as to global oil outlook, maintaining current oil gas output will require $540 billion annually. IEA now projects demand may rise through 2050. USMCA review. The US and Mexico are seeking public comment for scheduled 2026 review of the North American Trade Pact. Canada requested a review. It's supposed to happen in 2026. Now they fast forwarded. Canada will also seek public opinion. So will also do Mexico. And so this will be reviewed. Again, I did the deep dive. You want me to dive into it? Yes. I think it's winning time for Canada to regroup, build new relationships, new trade agreements worldwide, and just keep U.S. afloat so he doesn't escalate. That he, meaning Trump, believes that something is still going. It's discussion, while Canada is rebuilding and regrouping. That's what I think it is. Now, EU versus Israel, Brussels is weighing sanctions on hardline Israeli cabinet members and suspending part of its trade deal with Israel. So they declared Netanyahu essentially murderer, and now they're looking at sanctions. Now, they are not suspending aid for specific like religious groups. It's really targeting the cabinet. As to Chad term extension, so lawmakers advanced a constitutional change extending presidential terms to 7 years and removing term limits in Chad, bolstering President Mohammad Idris Deby. And I promised to talk about NFL. NFL goes to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia will host NFL flag football tournament, which supposed to kick off their affection with the NFL. This will happen in March of 2026, featuring Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, and current stars like CeeDee Lamb and Christian McCaffrey. Now, organized by Fanatics. Remember, when you buy any type of jerseys or whatever, it usually comes from Fanatics store. But this is with Saudi and Qatari sovereign fund investments. The 3-team event will include a halftime show and participation from several NFL owners. Coaches, Pete Carroll, Sean Payton, and others will lead the squads. So the NFL elites are invited to Saudi Arabia, where they will be wined and dined, and ultimately the sport will begin there. That's what they want to do, essentially, like moving soccer out of the limelight that Saudi Arabia is really into. Let's check some comments. We got some. US bravely picking up fishermen, right? Yeah, bombing fishermen. UN is useless indeed. Ben also demonstrated Capitol Hill. Yep. Karma, yeah, not an optimist. Yeah, that's me, right? I'm an optimistic realist. So, Trump elbowed Queen Elizabeth. There's no surprise. Yeah, right? Yes, that was last time. US, okay. Why did EU support him for 2 years? Support whom? Oh, Netanyahu? Because because Europe is still recovering from Holocaust. And for them, they needed a wake-up call to allow themselves to call a thing. And thank you for bringing me, multi-tom-tom, to this point. When I started that, look, Holocaust happened and October 7th happened. But also, with all of this, are you okay today that Netanyahu is about to murder or is in the process of murdering 500,000 people? Are you okay with that? If you are okay with that, know that the circus travels and the circus can come to you too. So if we embrace such behavior or don't do anything against it, it spreads. Holocaust made up by Zionists. No, Holocaust is not made up by Zionists, Tom. Holocaust did happen. If you are from Europe, you have people who are related to it, whom you personally know. And so let's not spread this. Plutonium yields 1 kiloton of synth public information. Okay, Holocaust is real. Visited Auschwitz-Birkenau. Yes, I visited it too. I grew up in Germany. We had to visit this stuff and the sites and write essays about it and learn all the facts, and it smells and feels a certain way. So if you go there, you will not forget that. As to Peter says Paramount CBS does graphics overlay NFL video, the processing intellectual property Oracle. See, everything leads to the same crap, right? Oracle, not Larry David, unfortunately, Ellison. Oracle connected to CBS and CNN, right through Paramount and the Warner Brothers, connected to TikTok deal, connected to the AI, right? Because ChatGPT and OpenAI is using Oracle storage. So all of this is part of one large corporation. Okay, let's dive in. Today in history, on this day, 1787, U.S. Constitution was completed and signed by delegates at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. 1862, Battle of Antietam. The bloodiest single day in U.S. military history took place during Civil War. 1908, Lieutenant Thomas Selfridge became the first person to die in a powered airplane crash at Fort Myer, Virginia. 1920, American Professional Football Association, which would become NFL, was organized in Canton, Ohio. 1978, after 12 days of negotiations, Egyptian president and Israeli prime minister signed the Camp David Accords, setting a peace framework between Egypt and Israel. President Carter's biggest achievement. Larry Ellison, yes, not Larry David. That would be too fun. Okay, so I do have a nice video to show you. This is, listen, it has nothing. Oh, no video yet. No video yet. Two things that I wanted to talk about. I do have readouts. First, USCIS, Immigration Service, sent a new advisory to naturalization. So for green card holders to become citizens. And this is new, so I wanted to read it out. They say, quote, American citizenship is the most sacred citizenship in the world and should only be reserved for aliens who will fully embrace our values and principles as a nation. By ensuring only those aliens who meet all eligibility requirements, including the ability to read, write, speak English, and understand U.S. government and civics, are able to naturalize, the American people can be assured. But that existed before. I had to pass a test and everybody. Now, USCIS has already announced several changes, including restoring robust vetting of all aliens and stricter reviews of disability exceptions for the English and civics requirements. USCIS has also provided officers guidance on assessing aliens' good moral character, looking for positive contributions to American society instead of mere absence of bad behavior. Gotta praise the leader. And then also, today, the State Department released this statement here. The United States has seized all frameworks to counter foreign state information manipulation and any associated instruments implemented by former administration. On April 16, Secretary of State Rubio directed the closure, and so now they finally closed it. The framework, initially launched by GEC to counter so-called, they say, disinformation, devolved into tools for political censorship instead of protecting Americans from foreign propaganda. These actions align with Trump's January 20 executive order of restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. Through free speech, the United States will counter genuine malign propaganda from adversaries that threaten our national security while protecting Americans' right to exchange ideas. So RT and all the channels will be back on YouTube. Holy moly, guacamole. Okay. Yes, and rest in peace, Robert Redford, indeed. And I did write a whole article for Sunday edition. So he did such a wonderful work with, of course, the Sundance, the festival, and really promoting voices that are not promoting by Hollywood. He spoke against Trumpism. He did so many good things. So I did a whole readout for Sunday edition. Also connecting the Emmys to it, and so that is certainly prepared for Sunday edition. Hence, I didn't write about it here, but I want to really focus on that and not, let everybody skip while looking for political news. Yes, and that's it. So to finish on a bit positive note, I was looking for videos for Sunday edition. I add this like funny animals, and I found giraffes being very silly and funny. So, for the lack of better video, just watch this so you can just smile before we end. Okay?
Huh?
Perfect. Oh my God. Isn't it great?
What the hell?
Oh my God.
More of that stuff will be on Sunday. I can't play music. They ban me every time I play music, video with music. Although yesterday's video, if you missed it, that was fabulous with the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, delivering or hosting the ceremony for the first time as a woman. And then there were women officers. Okay, so we're done. Tomorrow, again, I'm not planning to be live at 5 p.m. I will let you know in case this happens. We are for sure meeting on Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern with my report of the UN. There will be a video depicting what happened at the UN tomorrow. So that will be a separate video. And then, of course, I'll include it in my Friday recap. Now, what do we look for tomorrow? Yes, Trump is in London, so he's meeting with Starmer. He's going to talk about Trump will try to convince Starmer to tariff India. Starmer will try to convince Trump to help Ukraine. Prime Minister Carney of Canada is in Mexico tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, so we're looking into open trade, bypassing US, arms. I don't know. We'll see how they will cooperate there. So looking closely into that. Also, fat dropping rates, either already announced and I missed it, but certainly that is coming up. And of course, anything that happens nationally and globally. Now, newsletter is coming tomorrow, per usual. No changes. Live stream for sure on Friday. Tomorrow, questionable, meaning, I have to ask if they allow me. So that's the deal. All right. Now, as always, keep your head on a swivel. Be very vigilant and careful with what you consume, right? You decide what you consume physically in terms of food. You also decide what you consume in terms of intellectual food here, right? So be choosy. Sometimes put yourself on the diet, okay? And just pay attention to what makes you feel how, right? If that makes you anxious and scared for your life and panic, you're panicking after watching something, then reduce. Okay, it's a long run. This is a marathon. We need you happy and healthy. Okay, keep your head on swivel. Thank you so much for being here. Right. Thanks for heart. Oh, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Tidy One. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Glad you made it. Okay, have a good night. See you on Friday for sure, maybe tomorrow. Stay tuned and I'll send you an email with the app. So please download it. Okay.